with Ask Yourself, but I heard some of it, and I didn't. I just wanted to clarify that your position just seems to be something like you view uh, people as instruments and animals as instruments, and so it's just sort of whatever pleases you, and you don't really care about the suffering of individuals. Is that your position?
Correct. So I think in every sense of the word, I'm a nihilist. I don't think that suffering has any intrinsic value. I don't think that humans or life has any intrinsic merit or value. I don't believe in any sort of objective, independently verifiable or discoverable morality or anything like that. All whatever to me. So as the way that I live and evaluate my moral system, I try to maximize my own experiences. Yeah.
Why do you think that you have? Why do you think that you have intrinsic value?
Because I have decided it. That's it. Just from it's a self-interested point of view. That very fundamental view is unjustified.
Right, but there's nothing inconsistent about you being interested in other people, right? So
Wait, what do you
that
mean?
doesn't. Well, you said that the reason that you value yourself is just a personal thing, but it can be a personal thing that you value others, right? Are you just claiming that that's not the case? You just don't care about the happiness of others?
I typically do. Like, I think that when people around me are happy, it generally makes me happier. I don't want to be surrounded by a bunch of miserable people.
Right. So you, you don't think that the suffering of animals doesn't bother you whatsoever.
Nope.
Now, I'm skeptical that that's your answer. I think that that's your answer because you think that there's an inconsistency that is implied by the name of the trade argument, right? And so I just want to ask you a few questions. Do you think that statistically it's likely the case that what you say is true for a given human?
Probably not. This is why I make the argument that I think that most people should probably be vegans.
Right, but if that's the case, then you would agree that statistically speaking, people are. It's likely that you are lying, right?
Yeah, sure, but we can never prove this in an argument, if for no other reason, because I would just continue to lie to win the argument if that was the most important thing to me, right? You've got no way to deductively reason what I'm actually thinking. And if I
What's
really
that?
care about winning the argument, then I could just continue to lie if you think I am, right? So we're kind of at a
Yeah, but it's
standstill.
not. Yeah, but it's not deductive, and I don't think it's a standstill. I think you shot yourself in the foot because you admitted that the rational person will conclude that you're lying.
No, I didn't admit the rational person would. I said that most people, not that's not an appeal to rationality, it's appeal to popularity. I think that most people are uncomfortable with animal suffering. And I would justify this by saying most people, or a lot of people, have pets and think that dogs and cats are cute and cuddly, and we tend to have empathetic responses to their suffering. So I would say that most people, right? But that doesn't mean it's a rational thing, and it doesn't mean that all people are, and it doesn't mean that for me not to, I would have to be a liar. I don't think that necessarily logically follows.
No, it's a statistical argument, right? So you take a set and you say, given what you know about the population, where does this individual person more likely fall within the set, right?
Sure,
So
but I could take a
it's
given
just a
given a set of
statistical
people that
argument.
play video games 10 hours a day, like what is their income? I mean, I would fall very far outside the norm of that. That doesn't mean that I'm lying. It just means that I'm atypical, and I could be atypical in how I view animals as well, right?
Yeah, I agree that you could be atypical, but
Hmm.
what I'm saying is that without any other evidence that someone has, like I don't know, maybe someone could hook you up to uh, a machine that analyzes the amount of dopamine you get from playing with a cat or something like that. I don't know exactly what other types of inferences people could make, but what I'm saying is that just given the information that we have, it's more likely that you're lying than not.
I mean, I disagree, but again, I don't think the argument is very fruitful because you're essentially just trying
But
to
what
get me to admit that I'm lying about a position that I don't feel like I'm lying about. Or
well, I'm,
the problem is that, like, even if let's say, for instance, that everything you're saying is true, I'll continue to lie. Why would I ever admit the truth here, right? Because I would just lose the argument. So I feel like there's no possible way that this argument ever ends in a positive way, no?
but well, you could change your mind and you could say
Well,
that, yeah,
but if
I
your point is
agree,
that
I
I'm
was
lying,
lying.
why would I change my mind? If I'm lying, I'm just going to stick to my lie, right?
Well, perhaps after a lot of people come to believe that you're more likely lying, then you won't want to be looked upon disfavorably as a liar. And so
I
I'm just
mean,
trying to tease out that intuition hoping that that's the case, right? I believe that you're lying. There's nothing, I mean, it would be very hard, like short of you like smiling while you like cut open a kitty or something like that. I would just not believe that you're telling the truth,
Okay,
right?
I don't
And
think that.
I,
Oh, God, sorry.
okay, and I'm not vegan, right? And I don't think it's inconsistent that values are relational, so that you have there are contexts in which you value the suffering of animals more than others, right? And but I don't think that. I mean, it just seems to me bizarre that anybody doesn't care about it. And in fact, right, like I believe for any given person, they're likely to care about animal suffering. And so I think that you are one of such given people. And another thing I know about people is that when they feel like they're on a losing side of an argument, they tend to dig their heels in, you know, and that would cause someone to lie just if it made them look good in an argument. And so I think that those two claims justify my belief that you're a liar. And I think that if I think that everybody else can evaluate those reasons themselves and come to their own conclusion, you know. And I think that without
Sure.
a strong amount
So,
of evidence,
well, or sorry, you can finish. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, I think without a strong amount of evidence to the contrary, then most people would be warranted, you know, justify in believing what I believe, right? Because like, take the average gamer. If you use the example that you gave, and you take the average gamer, right? If they claim that they make millions of dollars, most people are justified in believing that's false, right?
Sure. Without further proof, sure.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I
I
wanted
guess
to say,
like
really.
my question though is like, do you acknowledge that there are some people that genuinely don't care about the suffering of animals? Do you think or no?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. So if you acknowledge that those people do exist, then you acknowledge that there is an ability or a capability for those people to exist. So why can't I just be one of those people?
You could be. It just wouldn't be rational for me to believe so until
I don't
there's
think that it's
a
fair that
defeat.
just because an experience is atypical, it becomes irrational to ever believe somebody when they say they have an atypical experience. Like, for
Well,
instance, if
look,
somebody tells me they've got synesthesia or whatever, like my default position wouldn't be, well, a very small percentage of the population actually experiences synesthesia. I think you're lying to me. And I'm going to continue to think you're lying until I see like a brain scan to my eyes. Like, I don't think that's a very rational position to have.
well, think about it in just in terms of probability distribution, right? If there's one red ball in a box with 100 balls, right? What's the probability that you'll pick out a red ball? It's 1 out of 100, right?
But one
And
out of
so
100 people
would a
will still
person,
pick it out, though.
right? But are you rational in believing that the next ball that you pick out is going to be red? Is
No,
that
but
rational?
if I pick out a ball that is red, that doesn't mean that it was like an impossibility or an irrationality that happened. It just means that it's something that falls on the very end of the normal distribution.
Right. No, I agree with what you're saying. I'm just saying that to
Like it's not.
believe,
Or sorry, go ahead.
right. I'm just saying that to believe as an individual that that's what's going to happen next is irrational.
Sure, but
Just
it
like,
doesn't sound like that's what you're asking. It's like what you're saying is like, let's say there's one red ball and 100 blue balls, and you go into the next room and there's 101 people. If somebody told you, dude, I got the red ball, you wouldn't go like, well, that's irrational because I happen to know that that is very unlikely. You know, your default would be like, oh, wow, that's really unlikely that you got it. And if you did, you know, okay, that's like an atypical thing, but it's not impossible. So I don't think it's fair to say that like because something is atypical or unlikely, that believing that it could be is all of a sudden an irrationality. I don't think that's a fair statement to make.
if all of those people claim that they got the red ball, you would believe, what would
Yeah,
you
but
believe about any one person?
I've already acknowledged at the beginning that I don't think that all people are. That's why I said at the very beginning of this debate, I think that most people should be vegan. And that's a position that I consistently maintain because I don't think that most people are okay with the suffering of animals.
I don't think that, I don't think it follows that if you dislike suffering of animals that you should be vegan, but that's
Well, I
besides
think
the point.
I would argue that it would because you're perpetuating unless you believe that you have no responsibility in perpetuating actions that cause things that you don't or whatever. But I guess yeah, that's kind of a separate argument. Yeah, sorry, fuck. This is like a really weird one because it's like the problem with this argument is like this is an argument that you can't win even if you're right. Because if I truly am lying, I'm never going to admit it and so it's like a really weird position where it's like I don't really know how to
Well, you,
continue.
I mean, you agree that I'm just trying to get you to agree that you agree that there are some situations where testimony is enough for people, and there are some situations in which testimony is not enough, right?
Sure, but the very fact that I could even get you to agree that there are people that exist that don't care about the suffering of animals, so we already both admit that these are experiences that can happen, kind of means that I'm like, that's it. I can just say I'm one of those people, and that's it. And there's no way for you to ever prove otherwise.
Right, but I'm just saying, statistically speaking, it's more rational for me to disbelieve that without defeating evidence, right? In the case of my belief that there are other people who are okay with that, I think that there is defeating evidence.
What is the
Evidence that
defeating
justifies
evidence
anything.
for me, though? What is the evidence that show, aside from the fact that it would be unlikely, what evidence is there that I'm lying about my position?
Oh, I don't think that there is any evidence besides it being statistically unlikely. I don't know you
Well,
at all.
then how can you say that? Like, just because it's statistically unlikely doesn't mean you could say that I'm lying about it. That's not fair to me, right?
I, yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to like, look, if someone told you that they love eating shit, right? You
Uh-huh.
know that that's statistically unlikely, right?
No,
You would
that's
you
not,
just believe?
but I don't think that these are fair comparisons because if you're eating shit, you are way, 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 way outside of anything that I'm familiar with. I would assume that that person is lying for sure.
There's
But if
fucking
you tell me
scat
that you're,
porn, dude.
what
I
if
can
you,
go on the internet and watch scat porn.
sure, but again, like that's like really, really far outside the norm. But I mean, like, sure, I could. It would just be outside. However, if you tell me that like you're indifferent to the suffering animals, I live in Nebraska. I mean, maybe you're just a farmer. Like I remember growing up, I used to take horseback riding lessons. I would watch them breed the fucking horses with those giant horse sticks and shit. And that seemed to be pretty fucking traumatic, but they didn't give a fuck at all. So like I could very easily conceive of a lot of people that are totally unconcerned with the suffering animals. Anybody that's ever worked on a farm or visited a farm can very quickly, I think, agree with me in that position. Maybe because I'm from the Midwest, it's a little different, but
Mm. I think that generally those people haven't come into consideration with the types of arguments that you have. So I think that that makes a difference. You know,
it's possible, but I'd have a real hard time debating like a farmer on the philosophy of animal ethics and getting them to like acknowledge that what they're doing is wrong because their emotional experience is going to be way different than mine. They're not going to see anything like intrinsically wrong with anything they do at all, or way different than the average person.
you don't think that you can prompt people to empathize with animals? That just
Um,
seems crazy.
I, I mean, I don't know, people that work on farms do a lot of crazy shit. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just business to them. Like, I don't know if they would see it much different than a guy that works on cars or whatever.
I mean, I guess that's the nature of capitalism, but I
I
don't have
just want to
anything
cut
further to
in
say.
here. Some farmers are empathetic with their animals. I mean, not, I mean, maybe if they're in mass production and stuff, but there are farmers who actually take very good care of their animals and stuff and are empathetic, especially when they have to send them away for slaughter and stuff. But they realize it's it's the reality of their survival and also to provide food for people. I just wanted to say that real quick.
Yeah, that's possible. I'm sure there are definitely farmers that are like that. But I mean, you acknowledge that there are also farmers that don't give a fuck about necessarily like they care about them insofar as like keeping them healthy and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are farmers that have atypical experiences, or maybe that's
Oh,
not even that far.
absolutely.
Sure.
Like, that's why I said, especially in mass production and huge places of just, then that it becomes more inhumane and stuff. I just wanted to
Okay.
point it out that not all farmers are like
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure.
desensitized to animals.
Yeah. And it probably especially depends on the type of farmer you are. If you have a much smaller farm, my child's mom, her dad like raises like chickens and shit, and I think they get eggs from them, but they're like literally like free range, and I don't even know if I think they slaughter them at like the end of life, or they might not even at all, and they just let them like. And I'm sure they're super empathetic towards animals compared to like traditional like people that keep cows standing up all day to pump milk out or whatever. I'm sure there are big differences in terms of what farmers think. You wait, that you're not a YouTuber, are you? The lady that just said something?
No, I'm not, but everybody thinks I am.
Okay, that's okay. There's some vegan asshole that tried to say that I was like a fucking Nazi, and you kind of sound like her, so I was just checking. All right, sorry.
Oh goodness, no, that's not me at all.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So next question